Mark and myself, I'll introduce myself. Mike Hughes. Most of my career, I was the customer. I spent, about 10 years of that early part of my career in the engineering field, early AutoCAD days, civil, mechanical type of engineering, for many years before I transitioned into technology. And my last regular job, I was the chief technology officer for an 8,000 employee healthcare group managing 6 healthcare companies across 10 states and 200 locations before Tim grabbed me and said, let's go do some fun things. And so for the last 6 years, I've been with Covenant, helping with product strategy and business development and just helping customers understand cybersecurity and their business and how technology fits into it. So Copilot obviously is the generative AI world is the new latest and greatest, buzzword. And that's what we're here to talk about, specifically around the Copilot for Microsoft 365 stuff. But I'll let Mark introduce himself.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. So I'm much like Mike in just my background, and I've been on the opposite side of the IT, like working for businesses and corporations, and in different capacities. So been in the IT industry for quite a while now. I think it's like 26, 27 years if I go and add it up. So been an engineer, architect, played those roles, senior management level in my last role, and usually it's enterprise environments, so multiple locations, up to 1,700 employees and managing their accounts and 365 operations. So I've known Mike and Tim for quite a while. Actually did a lot of work with Tim in the past in my businesses, and so I brought them in because there was merger and acquisition going on, and then it just went from there. So I decided, Tim pitched me and also Mike, and they did a good job, and I came on to Covenant. So, and doing a consulting capacity. So my background is definitely Microsoft, the realm, so a lot on-prem, since I can really date myself back, how many years I was saying, 26 years. But it's definitely focused more on the cloud and in security. So that's really my background in helping Covenant and just like pre-sales engineering, kind of architecting environments out. Back to you, Mike.
So obviously, here's our agenda. We jumped right in, introducing ourselves. We're gonna jump right into Copilot, what Copilot for Microsoft 365 is, and just kind of walk through this. Going to give you some live demos in here, and Mark is going to talk about some of the data security aspects of things and how data protection works within the Microsoft world. And I'm gonna give you some meat around how this all works. First thing I want to talk about, because this is one of the confusing points that people don't always get, is Copilot is a brand for Microsoft. And there are a lot of different products and services that wrap around this brand. You'll also hear Microsoft talk about Defender. Defender is another brand, and there's a whole bunch of security products that wrap around Defender. But today, we're going to talk about kind of operating systems with Windows. We're going to talk about browser. We're going to talk about ChatGPT. I'm going to bring that up as a reference here, and we'll look a little bit about that also as it relates, because there's a relationship there. And we're going to talk what Microsoft calls modern work. And that is essentially your desktop applications and the Microsoft 365 cloud ecosystem. So we're going to talk about those things, but Microsoft has other areas that go beyond the data AI stuff. When you get into Power BI, machine learning, Azure AI, and Microsoft Fabric, they've got this whole ecosystem just around the more advanced components of data analytics and generative AI. And then they've got, other stuff in the developer community, which is really where it all kind of started with Microsoft. Copilot for Microsoft 365 comes in 2 flavors. It comes in your personal, and then it also comes in for organizations. If you subscribe to Microsoft 365 for home, you get 5 members of your family or whoever have access to your desktop apps and OneDrive and all those different types of things. And then there's the organizational or the work side of the house, which is what most of us who are in the Microsoft community work with Microsoft 365. So that the equivalent on the Google side would be like Google Workspaces. Licensing requirements. Microsoft initially had some limitations on what licenses you could attach Copilot to. This list is not a comprehensive list, but pretty much you can. It doesn't really matter what license you have with Microsoft now. It's open. You can buy a Copilot license and attach it to your environment. The security aspect of it is Microsoft talks about like a lot about data security and some of the data security tools that they have built in, which some of them Mark's going to talk about later on here. But some of those tools are really only available in the business premium license, which is designed for small businesses under 300 employees. You get a lot of security components built into that. That's kind of where we establish baseline for our customers who really want to get into, understand security and want to protect their information and their data. In the enterprise space is the E3 and E5 license. That's kind of the equivalent. And so I just want to mention that from a data security perspective. That's where the Microsoft protections really kick in that Mark is going to talk about. Copilot accessibility. Copilot is available through a web browser, and it really doesn't matter any web browser. You can use Edge or Chrome or Safari or whatever you want to use. You can access Copilot through there, and it will function fine in any browser. You get the same experience. Earlier on, it was the Edge browser was primarily the go-to browser, but in the last few months, Microsoft's really opened it up and made a lot of changes. Within that, there's a sidebar, and that's only in the Edge browser. I'll show you what that looks like. There's desktop applications, your Word, Excel, PowerPoint. The Windows desktop, if you're familiar with Cortana, that was in our desktop browser. Microsoft has now replaced Cortana with Copilot, and so that's available on your desktop for both work and web, and we'll talk about what that means. And then on mobile apps, you can get it on all your Microsoft mobile apps. So, and that is slower in a little bit in the development, but it is coming. So you may not see everything there, but it is in process right now. A little bit under the hood. So let's talk about search in general. When ChatGPT came out from OpenAI, they went from 0 to 100 million users in less than 90 days. It was the fastest growing implementation of technology ever, adoption of technology ever. I mean, 90-day window, it just went boom, 100 million users. And that's what caught all of our attention. And that's why generative AI is the topic it is today, at the top of everyone's list to discuss. But when people engage with it, they typically engage with it first as search. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in the demos about how search is changing. But I'll show you how search is changing. But I wanted to talk about it here. Traditionally, search has always been keyword search. I am looking for this type of thing, and you do that within, Google or Microsoft. You're searching for something, and you're just typing in keywords. And then keyword search eventually evolved to natural language search, where it starts to under a little bit your intent of what you're looking for and in getting to that. And then now with generative AI search, it's what they call semantic search, or what I call semantic search, where they're really starting to understand the question that you're trying to ask to get you the right answer. And so it's a new type of search. It's almost a new skill, essentially, that we all have to learn when it comes to generative AI search. But search is evolving in this particular way. So much so that Microsoft announced in May that in July, this month, they were going to be pulling out the natural language search, that middle layer, right? They're pulling out natural language search. And the reason they're doing that is they're implementing that semantic index search I talked about. They're implementing a semantic index in every Microsoft 365 tenant. It used to be early on when you ordered a Copilot for Microsoft 365 license, Microsoft would turn on the indexing process to catalog all of your data that you have in there and create a semantic index for it, which normally took a couple of weeks to do. So you didn't get the Copilot experience right out of the gate the moment you added a license to a user. So Microsoft has now gone to the point where they're just pulling out the natural language search engine, and they're giving every Microsoft 365 tenant the semantic index, or the ability to do generative AI type of searching. So you don't even have to have a Copilot license. This is going to be turned on in every single Microsoft 365 tenant. Google's also going through the same process right now. They're that generative AI search engine. Google's a little bit further behind, but they will be putting that generative AI search capability built in to all the workspace accounts that you have. Just like every major search engine out there, Bing, Google, whoever, is building generative AI search into public web search. So all of this is coming. We're in this transition right now, and you're starting to see it. And I'm going to show some of that. The semantic index, what is that? So basically, it's the correlation of, it's creating themes around words. And this example on the screen here, where it says lobster, meat, crab, and steak, that's a theme, right? You can add recipe or barbecue sauce to it or whatever you want to do. That's a kind of a theme. And that's what semantic indexes do. They create themes around topics. And so that way, when you're searching for something, you're asking a question of the system. It's looking for that theme. It's trying to ground your question and understand what you're asking for and identify the theme of the thing that you're looking for, and then provide you relevant responses to that. And we'll show some of that. And this slide really shows the difference between, on the left-hand side, kind of what a keyword search looks like, and on the right-hand side, what a semantic index search response looks like. On the right side, you're going to see it understands spelling errors. I mean, I'm a terrible typist when it comes to grammar. Ask Melissa. She's constantly having to correct the things that I create. But it will understand spelling errors. It will correct it. It will understand what you're asking and trying to give you more relevant responses. And it will even pull it from documents that you have access to. I'm not going to go deep into this slide, but I want to just kind of give you a basic understanding how generative AI engines work. This is the Copilot engine. The way this works is in the, let me go here. In the upper right-hand corner is the place, or the left-hand corner is where you ask your question. And that can be in a web browser, on your mobile phone, all those places that I showed you earlier where you can engage with the system. And then the system goes over, your question goes over into the system, the Copilot engine in this particular case. And that engine then grounds your question and says, what are you really trying to ask of me here? And it may modify your question a bit so the system can understand it and get the best response out of it. And that's where it sends over to large language model and to get your response. Large language models are built off of like if you talk about ChatGPT and OpenAI, most large language models are built out of public accessible information to gain context. And then they're trained in particular ways. ChatGPT has their own, Microsoft has their own. Matter of fact, the Copilot for Microsoft 365 is built off of the OpenAI technology. So what you experience in ChatGPT, that technology that's there, that's the same technology that's running under the hood for Copilot because of Microsoft's $13 billion investment in OpenAI. So you've got the same technology under the hood. The difference with Copilot for Microsoft 365 is it has access to what they call the Microsoft Graph, or that is the data that you put into the cloud. So that could be a Word document, it can be an email, it can be a chat, it can be the transcription of a meeting. Anything that sits in the Microsoft Cloud that is indexable, searchable, is accessible to you only if you have permission to it. And that's one of the key things to remember here is Microsoft honors security. If you don't have permission to something, you're not going to get a response with that information. So if human resources has their stuff and you don't have access to the human resources stuff and you ask a human resource related question, you're not going to get a response with that information because you do not have access to it. So Microsoft honors the security that you have established within your Microsoft 365 tenant. So just know that it's Microsoft really honors and secures your data in that way, and they also do not train their language models on your data. Your data is a source of information, but it's never used from a training perspective. So I just want to talk about the kind of this system that they have in place that sits under the hood. Adoption. How do you adopt generative AI? Like I said, this is a new skill. This is something we all have to learn, and it's just like the first time you ever opened up a word processor or used a web browser to do search. It was something you had to figure out how to work, because there's a way to do it, and there's a way to do it well. And the way we learn with this new skill is by learning ourselves first, right? Because like how is this going to, your CFO is going to say, well, why do I want to spend $30 for this license? What are we going to get? What's the benefit going to be, right? That's a kind of that high level organizational financial question. And the way you answer that is by personal experience, right? There's a lot of great marketing material out there, but until you really use it and can kind of quantify that use case, I mean, of like how I personally use it, you're not going to really be able to answer those questions very well. It's hard to quantify that. But once you get into it and you start to utilize it, then it's like you never want to take it away, right? Because it's like power windows on your car. It's like once you have them, and it's this skill. So individual value is where you really start. Microsoft has a ton of training material out there, and I'm going to show you some of those things. Once you understand that, then you go into departmental skills, because now you understand as an individual how you can utilize it within your work. That then bleeds into the department. Now you can start to see, oh, I could use it here and I could use it there, and we could do this or we could do that. Those are the types of things you start to see the departmental value, and then that rolls up to the organizational value, because now you're starting to see, well, Joe and human resources started doing this with the month-end reports that we get from HR, and he was using generative AI to do it with, and it took them 2 hours, now it takes them 15 minutes, right? So those are the types of things that you start with, is those foundational skills, and you start with the individual, and then you work your way through the environment. I talked about implementation. Microsoft has implementation paths for both, user enablement and then the technical side of it. They've got tons of documentation and processes, and we can help you through it on how it actually fits your organization. And then they've got use cases as it relates to specific department. They've got a lot of information on specific use cases and how organizations are doing it today. Okay, the art of the prompt. This is that new skill that I was talking about, right? When you're engaging a generative AI system, you have to think of it like you're talking to a person, like a personal assistant. But you have to form the question well. The way the question is formed, the way you ask something of somebody, is going to determine the response you get, right? So the people who do the best with generative AI systems are the people who manage people, because they know how to form questions. Because we all know how to ask a question in a particular way to try to get someone to do something that we want them to do, right? But you form it in a certain way, right? We've all done this with our kids and whoever, it's like, that person's personality, and you kind of shape the question to that to get the response you're looking for. This is a similar type of thing. You're shaping your questions to get the response that you're looking for. And as you're doing these prompts, as you're doing these questions, they build on each other. It's like, no, I don't like that. Or no, can you try harder? Can you do this a little bit different? And that's what a generative AI system does, is you're engaging back and forth with the system to get what you're looking for. But here's kind of the core contexts, the core components of a prompt. One's the goal. What do I want, right? I want 3 to 5 bullet points. The context. Why am I asking this question? Okay, what's this prompt for? What I expect to get out of it. please, simple language so I can get up to speed quickly. And if there's any sources, right, that you want to specifically reference, you can reference files, and so on and so forth. The way Copilot works is if it can't find the information within your Microsoft tenant, within your tenant, it goes out to the public internet and grabs data from there too. So it will build it, gather information from where it needs to answer your question. But this is the skill that you have to learn, that individual skill that I talked about. This is where you start, and Microsoft provides you all the sample prompts, and now they have real-time prompt guidance as you're typing, and then effective versus less effective prompts. You don't want to be vague. You don't want to, where do you want to go for lunch? I don't care, wherever you want to go. What do you want to do, type of thing. You have to be very specific in what you want to do, right? Do you want Chinese or do you want Italian? You got to be very specific in your types of questions that you're asking, and to kind of form that prompt. The more detail you provide, the better the response you're going to get quicker versus that iterative piece. So it's like I said, a skill you learn. And then Microsoft has what they call the Copilot Lab. This is that training location. Every single Microsoft app you can see along the bottom row there, you just pick on the app that you want to learn how to use Copilot in, and they give you short videos, they give you prompt examples, they give you all kinds of information to learn about how to use Copilot. And then again, here's some like top 10 things to try first. Draft an email for me, recap a meeting, and notice recap a meeting is number one. We use that so much. I mean, when Copilot came out on January 16th for everybody, we got it for every single team member. And the first thing that we noticed was how it summarized the meetings for us. It just saves so much time, because I do a lot of product strategy, product development. Melissa's trying to capture all this information on what Mike said, and she always saying, boy, I wish I recorded this, because we go into Copilot and she can summarize the meetings for us. The other great thing is if you're using the new version of Outlook, you'll see now that where it used to say tentative in response to a meeting, it says now follow. So I tell people that if you're one of those busy individuals that gets double or triple booked, or there's a meeting you can't attend because of a conflict, follow the meeting. Because if you follow the meeting, now you have the ability to go back to that meeting and get a summary of the meeting, right? Just tell me, is there any tasks for me? Did anyone talk about me? Was my name even mentioned in the meeting? You can find all of those things in the transcriptions, and Copilot will summarize it. That's where we saw the value right out of the gate. The other value is with Outlook is the value we saw there is like you go on vacation or you're out sick for a couple of days or whatever, and there's this monster thread of emails and you want to just catch up quick. Hey, summarize ask Copilot to summarize your emails for the last 5 days or whatever you want, right? And it'll just consolidate it down. It saves so much time because it takes you straight to the meat of the content that you're really looking for versus having to go through. I mean, I've been on some email threads lately that are just back and forth, and you got 10 or 20 emails in a day. It's like, I don't want to read all this. Just summarize it for me, please. And that's what Copilot will do. So there's some great use cases for Copilot, especially as saving time. All right, demos. So let's jump into some demos here. Let me stop my presentation and let's start. Let's see, where do we want to start about? Let's start with search. I think that'll be a great place to start with. Let me bring this down just a little bit and let me go to search. So I filled some of these in just in advance to save us a little bit of time, but I wanted to talk to you about how search is changing, because remember earlier I talked about that. So I just plugged in, how to plug in solar panels work. Okay, and this is at Bing, and you'll notice that right here I'm getting a generative AI response right out of the gate, and then I'm getting these other kind of summarized responses here. But this is the Copilot response. This is the free version of Copilot available to you that's out there on the web. If you were to go to, let's see if I've got it here. I'm going to go to Google, and I haven't signed in this one, so let me close that one. Google's doing the same thing. If you're in Google Labs, there it is. Okay, so if you this works not with Google Work accounts right now, but this works with Google personal accounts. I got this little lab icon. This is one of my personal accounts I have with Google. I also have a Google Work account in addition to my million of Microsoft 365 accounts. But this is Google's piece of this. This is what they call AI overview. And this is the same type of thing you're going to see. So Google's already starting this. They're a little bit behind Bing in their generative AI journey when it comes to search. I have access to this on my iPhone also. That's where I really first started to notice it. But this is the generative AI search responses that you're going to see across all search engines and all collaborative work environments. This is what's coming. From a Microsoft Bing perspective, and Search GPT. This was just announced also July 25th. ChatGPT is putting a search engine together. Google's a little bit nervous, but so this is coming also. Just so you know, and also you may be familiar with the 4 Omni engine, the 4.0 engine from ChatGPT. I mentioned earlier that Microsoft Copilot is built off the ChatGPT engine. 4 Omni or 4.0 is available in Azure AI now, and it is coming to Copilot later this year, hopefully in the next couple of months. But you'll start to see the 4.0 engine come in. This is also available both paid for. This is my paid account that I'm using here, and there's also the free version of this, and it's pretty cool. I don't know if you've engaged with it yet, but you can actually engage in conversation with it now. It's pretty wild. So in the Microsoft world, and I'll go ahead and expand this a little bit bigger. When you're logged in with a work account, this is one of my work accounts I'm logged in with, and what you'll see is that if you go to, this is the Bing, or you go to copilot.microsoft.com, you're going to see this work web toggle. What does this mean? So web is just that. It is web search. It'd be no different than me going to bing.com and searching for something. As an individual, my work, even though I'm logged in with my work account, my search history here is not tracked by my work. Okay, my work cannot see this. There's no chat history here, nothing. So this is the same private type of search that you would have if you opened any web browser and went to any search engine and you just started searching for things. Because people ask that, can my work see my web searches? And the answer here is no. They cannot see it. However, if you flip over to work, now you are logged into work, and now you are tapping into the Microsoft Graph API. Okay, you get your chat history, and this is because you're tapped into the Microsoft Graph, or your work data is now being accessed by Copilot for your first responses. That is all tracked. It's all actually tied to there's a little location in your mailbox that you can't see that all your prompts and responses are tracked in. So it's all e-discoverable. So if you ever have an employee problem, know that if they're on the work tab and they're doing search against work data, that everything is trackable and e-discoverable. So that's the difference between the two. The other thing that you're going to get is access to the ChatGPT 4 engines here. So when you have a Copilot license, you're using the ChatGPT 4 engines, and so you have full access to all of that. It used to have a prompt here. We used to be able to switch between the different engines, and now they've removed that. So let's see here. And then Copilot Lab, I was talking about that earlier. They have all the demo environments, and then if you want to learn about the art of the prompt, like I was talking about, get tips and tricks, or learn about Copilot prompts, Microsoft gives you a lot of referenceable information to learn this new skill, so you can have access to it. So okay, so let's go use it. I'm gonna type in a couple of things here just so you can see how this works. If you use ChatGPT or any other generative AI system, you'll know. And I'll just type in here, what are the new Copilot features for Teams this month? I'm on the web tab, and it's instantly going out and giving me all the new Copilot features for this month. And mind you, there are a lot of Copilot features coming out. Microsoft has an entire roadmap for this stuff. And matter of fact, I'll grab the URL for that so you can see what this looks like here. And all these, we have a whole bunch of URLs to reference for you too at the end of this that we can share. So Microsoft has this roadmap, and I've got it filtered over for the Copilot product. So if you want to see what's coming or what's been released, there's a full roadmap that's visible to you to look for. So let me go back to where I was here. There we go. So this is obviously in the browser, no different than using ChatGPT. But if I flip over to Word, I also have access to my work data. So if I want to follow up, on meeting notes or emails or whatever I want to do, I can. If you look down in the prompt box, there's a // So if I want to reference a particular file, I just put a / and I can look at a file, a person, meetings, emails, whatever I want. Chats are going to be available on this list here shortly. I'm not going to do this here because this is my work account. So I'm not gonna display that information. There is no demo environments that they have available, but you have all this capability, and I just wanted to just let you know that it's there. As far as it goes with documents, I'll pull up a Word document. So this is a Word document talking about our Fortify process. In your applications, you're going to have a Copilot button that will show up on your desktop apps where you can start doing things like I can say, hey, summarize this doc for me. And it gave me the prompt, right? If I just want to give me a summary of the document, and it gives me that whole summary just right there, just pulling it all together. And also this is one of the new features they just added. If I highlight a paragraph, I can ask it over here, rewrite. Right, write a prompt or auto rewrite. I can have it rewrite prompts or make suggestions on particular paragraphs. So this is a new feature. If you have a blank document, okay, you can just click on the Copilot license or Copilot icon and just start typing here also. No different than the Copilot button over here on the right. When you're in an application, when you're asking for information, it will search both the public internet and it will search your data. So like I did that query earlier in the browser, right? What are the Copilot features for Teams this month? Same exact question, right? But I'm doing it in Word versus the browser. Copilot is tuned for each particular application. So Word does one thing, PowerPoint does another thing, Excel does another thing, but I get the same type of response. Okay, I can copy that in and I can paste it into here if I want to, or I can do thumbs up, and Microsoft looks at all these thumbs up. So if you don't like something, you can tell them. So it's all here and available to you in Word and Excel. PowerPoint, a little bit different. Let me pull up a PowerPoint slide here. And so this is PowerPoint. I asked it the question. Where's the question at here? I said, create a presentation about the top 5 things impacting the AC industry in 2024. And it gave me this slide deck. And I said, I didn't like that. So I told it, try harder. Okay. And then it came back, with this presentation, the things impacting the industry, artificial intelligence being one of them, right? And this was just generated off of public content. So if you have to do a presentation and you have a topic, Copilot's a great place to start, right? How much time would it have taken me to go research all this, pull it all together, grab all the imagery, and put it into a deck? Right? It would take me a long time. Copilot did it for me in a few, like 60 seconds, right? Just seconds. And it gives me a place to start. And then from there, I can say, yeah, don't like that, pull this out, take that slide. And then I've got a place to build from, right? And I've done this on a couple of documents recently where I had this place I needed to start, this thing I needed to build. I just needed a place to start. And so I asked Copilot to generate something for me and get me started. And that's one of the use cases you're going to have with Copilot. We've talked about different use cases. We've talked about the busy individual with Teams meetings and emails and being on vacation or whatever it might be. We've talked about research, right? Just doing general research. How do I find out about things? I want to learn something new. And then we've also talked about, generating content and things like that. So those are the kind of use cases you're going to get with Copilot or any kind of a generative AI system that's working on these types of things. It's all going to be helping you be more efficient and get to answers quickly. So that's why when I say people, once they get a Copilot license, they don't want it taken away, because once they learn about how to use it and they learn this new skill, it's one of those things that you just don't want to live without. So let me stop this, and I'm going to flip back over to my presentation. And then Mark is going to jump into, and Mark, I'll go ahead and control the slides for you. Just
okay.
When you want to move.
Yeah.
Mark's going to talk about some of the administration reporting sides of the house and a few of the technical things around data security that Microsoft has. So Mark, it is all yours.
Yeah, thanks. You can move to the next slide.
Yeah, oh, there we go.
So once you actually get an individual license added to your tenant, you will be enabled with this Copilot option within the admin console. This is really like a starting place to go once you get that license added, where you can understand what available license you have down below, like how many available, how many are assigned based off that. As the Copilot's actually assigned to users and users start using it, this is a place where you can actually see adoption by app. So it breaks it down from like the 365 apps of like how are people doing it in Word based off of the enabled users and then the active users within each of those apps. So it just helps point to really the adoption rate on those apps itself. There's another area where we'll get into the reporting and usage of that, and it digs a little bit deeper where you can actually quickly like send out communications to users to help that adoption rate increase. So when you actually go into the admin center, like the settings, this is a great place to go just to have shortcuts to different configuration items within Copilot. So again, Microsoft is trying to help you, just guide you through the process of just getting it set up, having visibility, other options you have with Copilot, and the security. This is the readiness and usage report. So this is why I was just mentioning and talking about, like when you go into the 365 reports and usage, there's a Copilot option there. This is where you can start seeing kind of like the adoption rates. You can see the active users within each of those apps. You can also understand the total license, the eligible users, because there are certain requirements in order for a person to have Copilot. They have to have be on the right channel update. So that kind of like that 14 number starts showing, that's where you would look at that and you can see and understand that. Again, available licenses, what's assigned and what's remaining. And here, this is where kind of like the user engagement, where you can actually, depend on the apps that are being used. If you're seeing a low adoption, you can actually, Microsoft provides these quick communications where it will create the organizational message that you can actually send out. So it's just an easy way for administrators to, again, engage the employees, send out those communications to them. That communications has links to outside where it just walks through the Microsoft Learn, helps teach and educate the users how to use the tool set. Defender for Cloud Apps. So this is a great utility. As long as you're using Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, if you have that enabled, it's going to upload all the activity, the logs up to Defender for Cloud, and it gives you the visibility of what apps, like third-party SaaS, like cloud apps that people are using with their organization. There's categories that they have. Microsoft actually tracks generative AI. So you can see the red dot there. That's one category. This number, it's 440 440 different generative AI websites, which I couldn't even name them all. There's so many, and that number keeps on growing that Microsoft tracks. So you can see what generative AI apps that people are using for their organization. Depending on your license, you can actually control and block that too through this. Data security, there's two main tool sets that Microsoft really utilizes. It's sensitivity labels within documents and then data loss prevention. The combination of those two tool sets help you really protect your content when it comes to Copilot. So sensitivity labels is going to give the capability to, you can automatically set a sensitivity label on documents. So those are all like Word documents within the 365 app ecosystem. You could do it automatically by a sensitivity type. So if you have like financial data, it can go through and identify that in the content within the document and then set that label. Or you could have users kind of configure, pre-configured labels that people can select.
Yeah, and let me jump in real quick on that too, Mark, because you brought up a good point. So the sensitive information types, these are types that are predefined by Microsoft. So the moment you upload a file, or you can see on the right here, it says Exchange, OneDrive, SharePoint, and Teams, right? The moment you add a file to the Microsoft Cloud or content to the Microsoft Cloud and it's indexable, Microsoft looks against the 300 plus sensitive information types like ABA routing numbers to see if that content has it, and then will automatically say, hey, this has an ABA routing number in it, potentially, right? It's pattern recognition, so it's not always accurate, but it's a pretty close. And so it will classify those sensitive information types automatically, but it can also do it with on-premise systems. So if you have a file server, you can install a sensor on the local file server on site, and it will index the files on the system, and then those files will show up as here on this list based on their sensitive information type, which then leads to the data loss prevention policies that tie to these that Mark will talk about.
Right. So the data loss prevention policies then really give you the capability to block content from being overshared. So if you have a sensitivity type where you don't want that data to be emailed out or shared out through OneDrive or SharePoint type thing, a data loss prevention, you can configure a rule set that says this type of content is not allowed to be shared, and it will block that. You can actually provide a tooltip to a user. They get a pop-up saying you can't do this. There's other controls you can have, some advanced controls where if certain type of documents are sent, it actually gets rerouted to an approver, so you could have other eyes on it, and then once they approve it, it's allowed to be sent. So again, it just gives you those just more real granular control of what you want to do and what you want to allow. Mike?
Yeah, so related to both of these. So you can create sensitive information labels that you apply to documents. An example would be you have a confidential document related to a particular project that you're doing, and you don't want anyone except a certain group of individuals to be able to access this document. So you can apply a label to that document that restricts access to those individuals and goes as far as even encrypting that data. So if that document were to leak out accidentally, no one would be able to open it except for that particular group of people. So you can create custom sensitive information types, custom sensitive information labels you can apply to documents, and then you can even go further with data loss prevention policies to prevent those particular labels or information types from leaving the organization, whether it be on the endpoint, copying to a USB drive, going out via email, or someone sharing a file with a link. So there's different ways that this all can work. And Microsoft Copilot, which is what we're talking about today, honors those sensitive information types and labels. So if something is secured with a particular label, right, to that small group of individuals, if one of those individuals were to use Copilot to create a new document or new something, right? Copilot will automatically apply that same security label to the newly generated document, so that content that secured content does not leak out. So it's honored all the way through the system. So a little technical there, I know, but just so you know that Microsoft is honoring security, and you have ways to protect information and classify information either automatically or manually. Good, Mark?
Yes, next slide. So sharing links and how just have an understanding of how your data is being shared out there to internal or outside to external. Microsoft has SharePoint reports that you can actually go into, run some sharing link reports. You can understand what sensitive labels are being applied to those files. What I would say here is that these reports have to be continuously ran. You have to wait, you have to get that information and review it. There are other third-party tools that I feel like do a better job that we actually work with. And you can actually dig in and drill and understand how all your data is being shared, what sensitivity labels are being applied to it, just understanding like a risk associated to those. Those third-party tools do a good job in that. But that's mainly what we wanted to touch on this right here. So Copilot, protecting your data, it's really, this is just an overview of what we've talked about. With the work account, when you're using the work account itself, it's going to be focused on the sensitivity labels, the data loss prevention. It's going to use those tool sets to really help secure and stop you from oversharing that documents. If data does get out there, you have encryption that's tied to that. So as long as it's encrypted, it's going to be protected itself. After signing in to the Copilot, you'll see everything is encrypted in that communication when you're on the work profile or logged into it. You'll actually see it in the very right side of that screen. It's a green instead of blue, so you see the shield. It'll show up as green. But that protection badge is just is something you want to keep an eye on, because as long as that's showing there, you're protected with that data. And again, prompts and answers and the responses are discarded at the end of the session. Data is not used to train the AI models, which Mike was talking about previously about that. So this is relating to like the prompt history, relating to e-discovery. If you're on the web, all that interaction is not going to be tracked. Once you're actually within the work profile and you can access that data and you're working with, you're doing the prompts to Copilot, all those prompts are actually being saved. And that's all going to tie back to e-discovery. So you're going to be able to use e-discovery to actually search for prompts and be able to see what that is, what files are actually being used, right? So if you're in a Word document and you're using other documents to create a new document, you're going to be able to see that in the e-discovery that this user then accessed, this content was created based off these other files. That's pretty much it. That's cover that. If you want to actually stop, certain SharePoint sites from being discoverable with Copilot, Microsoft has provided a capability to do that. You can go in there and actually limit up to 100 different sites from being included to be indexed by the Copilot. One of the key things that if you do this, it actually excludes those sites from e-discovery. So, that's where you need to talk to legal if you're going to start doing that with like SharePoint admins. Like, be careful with that. One of the things is that what I wanted to touch on is it's better to, instead of restricting, focus on doing sensitivity labels, using data loss prevention policies around that.
Yeah, so these are the go ahead, Mark. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. So this is all the reference links to just everything with Copilot. Just to learn about the prompts, the Copilot labs, the bootcamp trainings, the Microsoft Learns, the frameworks, the success kit. So a lot of that stuff, the adoption toolkit, Microsoft provides rich material just around adopting it within your company, provides all the email templates, all the posters and banners you can use within the company to really start educating and just advocating Copilot within the organization. Mike, you have anything else you want to add to it?
No, I think that's it. Yeah, there's a lot out there, but we can help you consolidate that down and make it a little bit more digestible. I'll call it that way.
There is one thing I want to add that we don't have it in the slides, and it's a new thing. It's in preview that Microsoft's doing, and this is just another example of they're just continually improving on the security of it. But it's called Purview Data. It's a AI hub, and it's going to give you the capability to actually start controlling copy and pasting into other generative AI sites like ChatGPT. You got Google's interface, so there's more controls based off like the sensitivity of your data, because that's one of the things you have to be careful of. Like, if you're going to allow people to go to other AI sites and use that, they can copy content and paste it into those prompts, right? And then like Google is going to start using that to really update their databases and their generative AI, their LLMs. But you're going to eventually have that capability and be able to control that and stop that. It's in preview, so it's going to be coming out probably this, I would say, this coming year.
Yeah, Microsoft gives you all the controls that you're going to need to protect your data from leaking out, I'll say, right? But just know that they honor your security. So doing a security assessment, we've been working with customers doing data security assessments. Mark mentioned earlier about some of the third-party tools that we're using to help customers understand what their users are doing and what they're sharing and how it's getting out. Because when we all moved from the old on-premise file server days to the cloud, sharing used to be controlled by the IT department, right? Who had access to a particular folder or share on the network. But now when you move to Google or Microsoft's clouds, now sharing, if you allow it, any user can share with anyone that they want, and IT is not involved whatsoever, right? And so we've gone beyond just old school email sharing, which is the most widely used sharing system in the world. We all attach documents and email them out, but now you've got all these cloud storage sharing programs that are out there that employees can just share however they want. And Microsoft gives you the controls, like we were showing Defender for Cloud Apps. If you want to stop people from using Dropbox, you can. So you can. There's all these different things that you can control now with Microsoft that helps data, sensitive information, from getting out by allowing users or your employees to share without your knowledge. So the tools that we use to do the data security assessments really just kind of give you some visibility into the high risk areas and show you what's going on. But it's just important to understand that Copilot or these generative AI systems really aren't doing anything from an exposure perspective because it honors your security, but you really need to understand your security. And you start with getting some Copilot licenses, some key individuals within your organizations. You start working with it. You do a data security assessment, kind of find out kind of where you're at as an organization and kind of identify where that sensitive data sits today and get some wrappers around it, and then keep on going with the Copilot licenses. Because once people see it and start utilizing it and understand how it works, it's amazing the benefits that you see as an organization just from a productivity perspective. So anyway, I'll stop there. Any questions that you all might have?
Yeah, I've got a couple questions. So one of the questions I have, I think I know the answer to this, but so we have our own intranet site, and I mean, it's great. In fact, we just won an award for it yesterday. So I'm assuming the answer is yes, but that data is not it's not in a Microsoft program. It's not in OneDrive. It's not in SharePoint. So can we add that URL to something so that it now is part of our company, what you call it, the Microsoft graph?
Yeah. Is it internal only?
Yes.
Is an internal URL?
Yes.
Okay, so then the answer would be no. So if the data is sitting in a database, okay. Well, let me kind of preface this, okay, because there's different tiers, right? So you start with Copilot for Microsoft 365. That's accessing the Microsoft Graph. That's what's stored in the Microsoft Cloud, okay? The second level up is what they call, it used to be called Power Apps, Power Virtual Agents, I'm sorry. It's now called Copilot Studio, where you can now start referencing your own data sources. And those data sources either have to be a URL, okay, publicly accessible URL, or it has to be like files that you upload, okay, that you create.
Yeah, so it is, I misspoke. It is a public URL, but it is
requires
secured.
authentication to get into it though, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so it wouldn't work.
Okay.
But so Power Virtual Agents is the next piece up, okay? The next piece up from that is when you get into Power BI and machine learning, but Fabric, Microsoft Fabric. So if Fabric is Microsoft's essential AI system where you can attach to private data sources, and in this particular case, it would probably be the SQL database on the backside, right?
Yep.
So it would attach. You would basically attach Fabric to that SQL database and build a chatbot for that data source.
Okay. Second question is let's just say there's certain people in the company, CEO, CFO, certain C-level people need to have a place to store data that isn't going to be added into this repository. Mm-hmm. And I'm assuming so then we can create a folder somewhere for each specific person where they can create data and store data, I guess you could say, store and create data that doesn't get indexed. Because we don't want, I understand what you said about, hey, we've got the internal data, we don't want it to go out. But I also have internal data that I don't want to go to other people internally.
Yeah. So that's where the security wrapper comes in. Okay. Right. So think of it this way. If I create are you guys in Microsoft 365?
Yes.
Okay. So imagine this: you create a private Microsoft team, okay, that only has those 5 individuals in it. Okay. The data is still going to get indexed, but only those 5 individuals would get response from Copilot for that data.
My last question, I just thought of a third one. Last question is, so before we go obviously we need to test this, but before we go mainstream company-wide, let's say we decide test it, this is great. Before we go company-wide, we really need to have all these security pieces in place in 365.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. I'm done with questions.
That's great. So let me talk about that a little bit. Okay. So the first piece obviously is just kind of find out where you're at from a licensing level, make sure you have the right tools that you need to do this with. The second piece is to identify what your current state is. Okay. That's where we come in with that third-party tool, and we have a free trial that we can do that'll give you a glimpse, right, of that. Mm-hmm. That looks good. We go further. And then the first thing we do is really say, okay, in your organization, what is the most sensitive information that you would never want to get out, right? Never want to leak, right? Human resources information, financial data, whatever it might be, right? Anything your customers might expect you to be maintaining as private from a privacy perspective, that type of stuff. And then the next question is, okay, where is it within your environment? How is it being protected today? Who are the individuals that are in control of that? You start looking at all these little kind of sensitive information types versus everything, because we got 20 years of history of data, whatever that might be sitting out there, and to go through millions of files, you're never going to do that. So you really start focusing on the key sensitive information that you want to protect. And we normally start with financial, because that's the financial and HR, because that's where you get ransomed. That's what the cyber threat guys are going after. Anyone that can move money within your organization or has the access to bank accounts or the authority to say moving money, those are the people that have to be the most secured, right? Because they're the ones with the authority to do things or have access to sensitive information. So we typically start there, because that's what you don't want your other employees to see or that type of thing, right? You want to maintain that privacy. And that's and depending on the sort of size of your organization, sometimes it's just a couple individuals, and sometimes it could be 50 people. So it really depends on where you're at. But identify the sensitive information you want to attack. Where is it stored? Who has access to it? And then big one is who has access to the ability to authorize the moving of funds and access to bank accounts. So that's the area we really focus in on first, and then get some wrappers in around that. And that may just be like we talked about a minute ago, is just, hey, human resources, private team, move the data there. Only those people have access to it. And anyone outside of that team, if they try to ask, hey, what's the salary information for every employee in the organization? they're not going to find it because we've moved it all to there. It's not in someone's OneDrive, right? Because OneDrive is personal space, not collaborative space, even though you can collaborate out of it. Move it into a team, just like you would move it into a traditional network file share. That's what a team is a replacement for, essentially. And then within that team, you can have sub-channels. So if you've got 10 people in human resources, but 2 people in that are payroll focused, right? You can create a private channel and move data into that private channel for that particular information. So only those individuals have access to it. So we start talking about these data security models and around sensitive information. And there's a good method to go around that I think you can see. I've given you a couple examples.
No, I think I understand it better now. Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else?
You have a question? Okay. All right, everyone's good? All right. Thank you, Mark and Mike.
Yeah.
Thank
Our
you.
pleasure.
That was amazing.
Good chat.
Yeah. Thank you.